Good evening all. Welcome to TechGig webinars. The topic for today's webinar tells us how to overcome porting needs with Extreme OOAD for Android, BlackBerry and JavaME Apps. To guide us on the same, we are delighted to have Mr. Raja Nagendra Kumar, founder and CTO at Tejasoft Innovations as our expert speaker today. Mr. Raja is a clean code Java engineering specialist with proven consulting expertise with both product and services organizations. Gentlemen, the presentation will continue for 45 minutes and you can ask your questions to the speaker by typing in the chat pane available. So, I now request Mr. Raja to continue with the session. Thank you.
Hello.
See your screen, please open the PPT and let's get started with the webinar. Thank you.
Hello.
Kumar, your voice is audible.
Okay.
Let's get started with the webinar. Thank you.
Oh, great. Okay. Hi, everybody. I would like to now, discuss more on, one of the very mature process process and culture which exists in the mobile application development, either in Android, BlackBerry, or JavaME. We have some solutions, which can minimize. So we will take you through some of the case studies and then show you what is the best way to avoid it. So basically, I will have a background of the context, and then we will define porting, and we would also talk about, with reference to the mobile apps context, what is porting and what are the challenges for the organizations in accommodating porting, and also for the developers. And finally, we will share some of our object-oriented principles with which we can avoid porting. And the same principles will be explained through set of 5 tips, where we will tell you what is the problem and how it got solved with object-oriented way. So basically, we are still, looking for mobile hype exit, but the killer applications are still way far. And there are many tools and which actually talk about promising right ones and run everywhere. But however, I think there are a lot of hidden costs come up, and and in the last mile they prove to be wrong. And so we will talk to you in the context of mobile applications related to Android, JavaME, and BlackBerry. So these are all related to Java mobile applications. Assumptions we are making here is, we have an audience who are developers and architects, and they have gone through some mobile applications, entire life cycle, at least the 2 of the applications. And we also welcome all of you to the product era, which is just beginning in India, and which actually means simplicity should be rewarded as opposed to complexity, and which is quite opposite in services model. So coming to the definition of porting, we try to, yes, there is no software is perfect, but it can be adapted to the minor changes of the hardware and software, so that the investment can be it is not again 100%, but with an incremental efforts you are able to comply to similar hardware and software. So why we have porting? It is actually the dirty culture which has come in to handle the fragmentation. And why the fragmentation? Yes, we have so many people. There are so many devices coming in each week and month, and as much as 10 new devices are getting released each week. And also the same device is now, because now previously software was, at least was limited to desktop. Now it is coming to the everybody's lifestyle in the form of gadgets, and that's where you see mobiles, tablets, and TV sets, and I'm sure a few other forms may come up in future. And software and hardware evolves with the time. See, another thing is, because these hardware and embedded devices are evolving so fast, corresponding to that, to keep up the competition and expectations, even the SDKs have to evolve. New features have to come in from an operating system level at a development level. If you really see, Android itself has got now 20 versions. See, one of the things I still remember is when people said, JVME is too fragmented, that is why Android has come. And that is the time I said, even Android will face the same challenges as JavaME. I mean, JVME is not something, it's something, an implementation issue or an architectural issue. It is a way the software has to evolve, and then there will be some variances. And for those variances, you have to comply, because then only your penetration in the mobile application to everybody is achievable. And also, now with Android success, you will see hundreds of OEMs, and they are actually adding more and more rich features to the mobiles. And they're also giving you proprietary API, because they want to make sure that you use the full power of their device. So basically, in the porting context, you have to meet so many challenges like this. Unless you meet it, your penetration rate for the application, and you realizing, yeah, I will make one application, even if people pay $1, I make 1 million. See, that a dream will never come true unless you overcome the technical challenges to cover all of this. So some of the conventional ways, at least I would say, avoiding porting. So most of the time, at least in Indian services culture, they duplicate the code. So, and then that actually, yes, it seems to give, results, but, over a period of time, it actually attracts, hundreds and hundreds of developers. And there are also some other kind of, cross-platform tools, which actually are very, very immature, but, people buy it because of the hype and, marketing and advertisement. So other approaches in some startups, they will say, actually, because we do consulting with startups, they say, Nagendra, yeah, we don't have so much of money. We are okay to limit our business by putting it into only the popular things. But the definition of popular is changing so fast, and they also end up in a messy situation when they want to scale their business. And also there is another myth we see, HTML5 will solve all the problems. So again, it is again, people want to dilute and then face it tomorrow, rather than, it can be, see, in fact, HTML5, or even HTML6 cannot solve this problem. So by the time HTML standards evolve, X6 will have, the APIs, native APIs will go to something else. And also another, very brute force method is a pre-processing, where, you actually put all the things, they still call that as a single source, but it can create much more bugs and highly, it can demand very high maintenance cost. So we have seen what is porting and what is mobile applications, context of porting, and what are the ways, somebody can avoid, or at least the current trend of trying to avoid porting. So, but however, we see that, what are the pitfalls, as I said, most of the time, they see in India, in service, in IT culture, most of the time, they only add another mess solving rather than trying to solve the roots of the mess. And which eventually people will know by that time, there will be another technology which is coming in. So, however, we actually summarize this like this: technology for the sake of technology, numbers for the sake of numbers will not really give any kind of solutions. For example, any technology you say, Android SDK evolves over a period of time. How can a third party can meet that? That even if they meet it, there will be a lag between the third party adopting to the new versions, which means you are actually losing out some of the features. So you cannot go to, you have to go, you have to delay going to the market. And also, let us assume now there are so many third parties who are addressing this problem. How many such kind of APIs you will learn? And then, who will win? And also because third party is also another layer of software, they will have their own bugs. You cannot expect them to be perfect. So all will actually add more and more complexity, and it will not take the business anywhere unless you have tons of money to manage manually. So let me then now just take at this context, if anybody has some questions, I would like to address them. Okay, somebody is asking me what is a pre-processing? What kind of bugs it will create? See, basically, most of the one of the agenda is people want to maintain a single source, and that gets read as I will have single source with some set. For example, I think let me take you through that slide. See, basically, if you really see here, so for mid P2, you have to import these kind of code. So which is nothing but which are there in a mid P2. And if it is a Nokia UI, you will actually start using Nokia API. So that way, this kind of code is actually not object oriented. Even the IDEs will fail to show you find usage and all. Maybe I don't have an example code, but basically they try to they are copying a C version of pre-processing, wherein you induce dynamically you enable mid P2, then only these 3 lines will come, not the Nokia UI. And if you enable Nokia UI API, then these 2 will come, not the mid P2. So selectively you try to put everything in one code, but you define during the compilation time, you can actually talk about which variables, and based on that that certain code gets compiled. So another question I see is so from Somana, the last question was asked was by Soumya S. And this question, I'm new to Android apps development, then how to start developing big apps. So maybe we can take that later. We assume that people have gone through some basic programming of 2 applications. Okay, another question from Syed. What are the major impediments for evolving standards similar to Java SDK, JavaEE for mobile platforms? At least the developers can be more productive. Definitely, see, this is where standards take a lot of time. But however, because of this embedded nature and commodity nature of the mobile, people doesn't have so much time to wait for. So this is where I think a lot of confusion is happening. You have to live with them at least with a certain period of time. And I only believe, see now still, it is the era. See, if you really see, Java has come after so many years of desktop maturity, and still, it is evolving. So this is a game which, which cannot be stopped, and, and people have to go through the pains, and suddenly they will say, boss, now I'm mature enough to define standards. So our approach will actually help you to, even without the standards, whatever the proprietary standards, you can still achieve a lot more things, which I will talk to you once we go ahead. And we have another question, which will render device sensitive HTMLs. I think I'm not getting this. Maybe if you are saying, yes, why the HTML itself is fragmented, even the specification itself is standard, is fragmented, and even if implementation of those specifications, whatever they say, it itself is fragmented. You see lot of devices which may not support 100% HTML the way it should be. So I think this is more of a software evolution problem rather than trying to say, it can be addressed by third-party tools. So now let me go back to the next slide. So we have gone through, yeah, the organization challenges you see is for each release, they need to invest so much of money and time in trying to port it and make sure it really works. And the testing efforts are very high, and it's a very risky business proportion compared to desktop kind of applications. So when we say desktop application, you please see that they are also equally fragmented. But because there was a huge time, and then people have really, by the time people got used to so much mass scale of using desktop, standards are really at a higher level of maturity. That is why you will see, there's still a problem, but that's not as much problem as what you see in the mobile applications. And the least denominator approach is not desired because it can impact the brand, and it also limits their business. And I would always say, it's a long-term business returns is still a hype, and which many organizations started to realize. And I would say that is because of the engineering issues more, than the real, the value one can provide through the mobile applications. And if we consider the developer challenges, see, if we are talking about how mature is the software for developers itself. Forget about once you release it, will it be the common man can he really use it? So SDKs are evolving so fast, and you can't even install multiple versions of the SDK. So that they try to they don't complement each other, they fight each other, and then it makes very messy installation, and then you will have a lot of problems, time wastage there itself. Also, just think about plugin like Eclipse. So can we reuse, see, for example, we are talking about professional enterprise applications. Can a plugin is mature enough to say that I can reuse the code across the projects? So which you generally do it for an enterprise application, but the mobile applications you still can't do it. And because most of them depend on the Eclipse plugins, and they themselves don't think about code reuse across the project. And can you imagine the level of how to simplify using of resources across Android and JTME model? So there are a lot of things. See, again, I would say software SDK is at its best. Plugin is not at its best, and then once you start falling back to their culture, which is given by those software and Eclipse, it is very easy to say that there will be n number of bugs coming in, or n number of manual steps you need to continue to do it over a period of time, which can create much more mess. And meeting market demands with substandard tool set is highly impossible unless you have elephant of resources. So this is what I have. So now once we all understand the context very clearly, so I would like you to take you through some of the principles which we learned in a very tough time of our journey of 8 years of enterprise grade mobile applications. So where we say implement feature and support feature variance. So what we are saying yes, every feature is very important, but don't limit. Make sure you have it by design. You actually also take care of variances. How do you support anything can be changed? So that is what all those complexities saying. SDKs evolve, software requirements evolve, and there are different standards, different versions of the same thing. But for all these, they are indirectly telling you, I am variable anytime, either now or in future or anywhere. So that is where we say, every object and class should be able to support variance at a field level and method level. And also think about object code reuse, not limited to single source, not limited to just Java source, but also rethink about resources, where you want to reuse images, you want to reuse audio and video and text. So why do we say this is what actually exactly people try to fit in different media, different text for each device. and different source code. I mean, we have something called magic numbers, so which I will actually give you an example of it. Also, don't depend on a plugin approach. Have an intelligent build script which actually makes you very professional and very easy for changes to happen. And you should also have a way to custom device configuration, so that you will, if the new device comes, it's some simple, you have to introduce a new device configuration and you are done. You are able to adopt to new SDK. Also try to use, so for all these, you actually, Java has already given you a lot of strength. Object oriented has given you a lot of strength. Only thing is people don't think at root level to fix it. For example, source path, you can actually, it's very dynamic. You can actually build per device, so that you are able to really manage the complexity of fragmentation. Similarly, class path. Similarly, definition of devices. You can have your own definition of devices. And you should so even also you have to very systematically install SDKs, so that you are able to have multiple SDKs evolved. I will demo all of them, but I'm just trying to see how much you can digest it now. And keep evolution in mind. As I said, this fragmentation we are seeing as a problem because of the mobile penetration. But this is there from day one the software is coming. And it is aggravated now because there are massive usage of mobiles. So I would now, okay. So now I think there are no more questions. I will continue with how try to see how these mobile the 5 O principles can be really understood by all of you in the form of tips, and where we really connect you to. Now we will tell you what is the problem which actually most of the people face, and how it gets done in the porting environment, and how we can actually bring out self-maintainable framework ourselves. So one of the point we said was the first, keep variance in mind. So leave away the world of bug, enter into the world of variance world, wherein what we said, anything can vary anytime. So that is, is our principle, and this is meant for aspiring architects who can actually put some things in place, so that they are able to really manage the changes with reference to different devices very easily. So let me take the case. Most of the time you will see in the porting a code like ifs. So some variable is defined. If it is so some you would see that some so everywhere you will see endless list of ifs. So for example, if it is Nokia, and within Nokia, if it is S40, do this. If it is S60, do this. And tomorrow something else comes, you should know where to fit in another if. And if it is Motorola, so there is never ending. And this is only for one method. Now, can you imagine how many some device specific code would exist if you were to develop a professional, enterprise application? So you will have tons of complexity keep on building, and at some point they will have to throw away the code. So this is what is something like very typical case you will see anywhere in the porting. People will be trying to manage this, and we have very simple solution how you can manage it, being object oriented, not looking onto third party, that means being native, and still find a way to code reuse across Android, across JTME, on as well as BlackBerry. So we want to do away with this kind of code. See, that's the very simple philosophy we have. We need to make sure that this code should not exist for a professional enterprise applications. And then how are we going to meet it? So we want to say that so we have eliminated this code, and we want to write it in object oriented way just by calling device method play sound. Now in this context, now if I say I want to customize play sound per device, Now how do I see? That is a variance. Play sound is a method to be called, which can be changed from device to device or SDK to SDK or firmware of the device, anything it can happen. Now let us take a case where how that somebody can implement it with variance in mind. You see device method extends generic device method. So here we are saying, oh yeah, we have a device method which encapsulate, it can actually bring in device specific play sound. And now in this case we see device method extends generic device method. And generic device is a super class which generically implements device method. That's why you don't see any method called play sound implemented. So device method is a wrapper to generic device method. Now if somebody wants to have it for Nokia, now what is it required? N60 device. So you can still implement N60 device, extend some XYZ, and you say play sound. So now if somebody wants to build it for N60 device, so what should we do? So device method is there with play sound, and for generic device it should call generic device methods play sound. For N60 device it should call N60 play device method. Now this is where the magic. If you can handle this, then we are pure object oriented, and we have also separated complete custom space. So now in N60 method is actually written for Nokia. You can always import Nokia API. Nobody will question it. However, this play sound which is here, will not know that it's Nokia. So at a class level we have differentiated it so much that it is pure object oriented. It can evolve. Now that is what we have to do it. So basically if you really see the previous screen, it was generic device method. At build time you can actually induce it to N60 device methods. So if somebody is building for N60 device, the build time can actually change it to N60 device methods, so that you have actually taken care of all the fragmentation. You don't need to worry about all the ifs, and it is very, very clear that we have separate place. We know that N60 device methods is a place where we have to actually capture anything specific to that particular device. And though we said N60 series, actually you can actually fine grain it to any level. N60, you can say N73, N60, N70 kind of thing. Any level you can go. So that is one tip. Do we have any other questions, moderator? Okay, fine. I think then we'll go to the next tip 2. Please stop me in case I think these tips are very. This is where I think the entire knowledge sharing is. If you can understand the porting business, and we try to simplify as much as possible. But however, we are saying being object oriented is a boon in the world of fragmentation. So now second tip is you will see a lot of magic numbers. So wherein for example somebody wants to draw with a width something standard, a generic the original developer may have some width as ABC, 10 or something, and then you need to keep finding an adjustment of 10 plus 10 minus 10 depending on the profile of the device. So you would see very, very common role of porting is finding the magic numbers. Now let us see in being now this is very complex, because now how are you going to do it for so many variations with ifs or case? For example, now you see case 128, case 245. Now what happens if you have something else? In 128 you have another version of different coloring or something. So this ifs can go on. I think that is why most of the people will actually on the porting they have to throw away their code, but that doesn't work for enterprises, because they have to invest for each porting at least 200 to 500K, and which they cannot forego, because each release will cost them. And if you have too many releases, they are bound to fail, at least from the business returns point of view. So again here we want to know, even like if we want to do away with stitch cases. And how do we do it? we just define something called device constant dot width adjustment, and you follow the same philosophy where we say, yes, you have a device constant, extend generic device constant, and generic device constant will define the value as 10 or 5, whatever it is. And then for S40 devices, they will define what is that their kind of adjustment. So width adjustment is actually, okay, the 10 is missing. So you would have actually, you can put it as some value 10. So that, then at build time, you can actually change it to device constant extends S40 device. So then what happens during the compile time, though you are calling device constant, which is extending S40 device, it will take whatever the value you have given in the S40 device. And it is very clean and object oriented, and you can actually have tons of these constants like this, so that at build time, you have the best way to manage the, porting needs. So this kind of approach can be handled by developers themselves. They don't need to have a separate porting team. So there were the two tips. One is the magic numbers, and second is how to avoid ifs. Say that all the ifs are ifs and switch cases resulting due to fragmentation of either devices or the software or SDK can be avoided that way. So now you will only have a business related ifs. That is the way the desktop applications are all. When you see most of the desktop application will have business related ifs, not more than that. Okay, I will take few more questions now. I think, the mobile application developer. So I see one question from Mr. Chetan Sharma. As a mobile application developer, how can I identify a correct platform or a third party if needed? If you really ask me, you should not go with any third party API. But yes, if the business demands, you have no say, you have to use it. So our approach is, I'm saying, see, most of them are decided by business, and business will only know the technology problems in the last mile. So this is where is the challenge. If they really understand their last mile of the business, they have to really respect what are the technical decisions they have to take from day one. But most of the time, I think, people are running around to show something working. And that is the cause of a lot more problems than the fragmentation. So basically, if you are, I'm saying, please, you are also developing a software which evolves over a period of time. Whether it could be Android, JVME, or combination, or BlackBerry. Please make sure that you are doing engineeringly right things. And when I mean that, it is not about what is there in the mind, how much of that mind is reflected in the code. And if you do that, I think, any kind of complexity, whether it's a third party today or third party tomorrow, you can actually very, very easily evolve. So this is where we say code engineering has to come in place. And more than, trying to see, which tool, there's no tool is perfect. Any tool can kill you if you misuse it. And 90% of the time, we misuse it. As you just told, we changed the generic device method to Nokia at build time. Yes, I don't know what is the question. I will tell you, how we overcome that. I will actually demo you something so that you will see that, see, once you understand that is the principle you have to apply, it is very easy to change at the build time. So yes, either you can use AND or anything else. So that was a question from Himanshu. And can I port JavaME app to Android? If yes, then how? Please let me know. Yes, we are saying, instead of taking it as a porting approach, look at code reuse approach. Where, for example, JavaME, Android is a superset of JavaME. So which means most of the code other than the UI, you can be reused. So we will show you how you can dynamically reuse JavaME code. For example, you have created one class in JavaME, and the same class you should be able to actually use it in the Android. So I would say, please don't look at it as, it is a porting. As a developer and an architect, what we want to see is, both of them are Java, can I reuse them straight away as much as possible? So then you're not actually investing on porting, you're actually investing on a better architecture, a better way of doing it. For example, business logic of for example, if you're connecting a server, then you are actually defining an XML for as a service. It's the same thing of parsing and unparsing can be used by JavaME and Android. And if you have to fall in that, if that code falls within the common denominator of JavaME, why can't we put it as a common code? Don't even think about porting. It has the way, because that will actually do, even with one testing on one device, your business logic is going to be better.
Sorry to interfere, Mr. Raja. Your voice is breaking a lot. Can you please come closer to the mic?
Okay. Hello? Yeah. Is it better now? Hello?
Yeah,
Hello?
it seems better.
Oh,
It seems
sorry.
better.
Okay. So now let's take the third tip where you have people. We see a lot of invited branches which gets created eventually. When they start, they start very clean. But whenever the bugs come in and pressures of management come in, you will see infinite kind of branches gets created, and that also makes porting efforts highly unscalable or very costly. And at least based on our experience, we see you see at least Android, BlackBerry, JavaME. We have seen to that some people were creating source code across SDKs of Android 1.1 and 1.6, or 2.0, 2.3, 3.0. So there's that is where I'm saying it is about the fragmentation is not wrong. It's actually telling you some engineering problems. And if people manage in a very rudimentary way, that creates a business problem. And we have seen, eventually people create one branch for each client. And this actually, yes, you need, if it is earning big money, it is fine. But most of the startups, they don't have so much of luxury. And even the big companies, at some point they cannot maintain it. They can sell it and go. And so basically, yes, you please observe, how many branches you are creating, and there is a solution you have to find, and we will tell you another solution which is working for us. I will demo you again across. See, you don't need to again. The same question somebody asked me, whether it is a choice of Android, JavaME. No, it is a holistic approach. You are developing an application which has to meet all these kinds of fragmentation world, and which need to find an architecture solution. Now let us say if we have this kind of architecture, this kind of directory structure, where it actually supports the fragmentation, it supports code reuse, it supports resource reuse, then you are better off. You don't need to worry about third-party API. You see, most of the fragmentation is represented in this directory structure. So what we are saying is, you have a foundation, and then you have a modules in it. In modules, you have embedded modules which are mobile, tablets, and TVs. And if you have a code which can be reused across all these, you can put it in the common. So we use the abbreviation CMN to represent common. And then within the mobiles, you have Android and JavaME. Tomorrow something else can come. The BlackBerry is within JavaME because it's a third-party specialization of JavaME. So basically, you have some common code. As I said, if you have a business, you have to you have to parse whatever the XML to be coming from server for both Android devices as well as JavaME devices. Then you can put that code here. So then what it means, when you are compiling for JavaME classes are referring to this common code. When you are compiling for Android, it is also referring to common code. You still have one single source which is reusable, and with that source, if you test it on one device, you are more confident that even for the Android you are able to see that working. But yes, it actually demands a lot of skills, much more than very basic way of coding, but I'm sure that is the way to handle it. That is where I think we are all paid for as engineers. So now so same thing, we are saying, you can introduce tomorrow, some other classification you have. You can actually introduce one more thing, and then your framework will take care of using it. So create a new directory and start adopting it. Now we said this is the foundation, the ultimate reusable. But however, yes, it cannot be met 100%. Even first time you cannot meet, but you can actually maximize it. That is why you have a project specific directory structure. Here we are defining for a project called TechGig, which is one, each user's foundation also has a specialization. So this is where, if you really see, we are using the same object-oriented principles are the way we are organizing the source code. You may not see all this in Maven and all because they are meant for something else. But if I'm sure they may also evolve to this level, but at least it works for us. So what we are saying, anything can change anytime, but however I want a reusability, and those reusability can be captured in foundation, and this can also be captured at a module level reusability or at a global level reusability. So now similarly you will see a parallel directory per project. And if you see another project, you will see foundation same for that project, but they will have some project specific code. So basically, please apply simple object-oriented, and 90% of your problems of maintenance is gone. But however, you still need to have patience, and you should believe that this is the way I can go to the market faster. And we have seen, this kind of things, has saved as much as 50% of the cost and going to the market. So similarly, you will see again JTME. You would see, and again now in JTME, you may, okay, let me take, in Android, you may want to have something specific SDK. So then those all can go under resources, where you have something called reporting directory. So you have SDKs also, you have different OEMs, where you have 1.x version, 2.x version. You can actually keep adding source code corresponding to G10 here. So if it is reusable across all the G10 devices, you can use it here. So this can go to any extent. As I said, tomorrow, some different OEMs come, we have to create different directory and then start adding corresponding source code. And when an architect comes, if everything, I'm sure, people without good architect, they will put everything under G10. So, but that is not the intent. Architect job is to see how to move this so much of G10 source code to up and up and up. So that is where I think, at some point we are defining let's say 10th application, you will have 80% of the source code coming from the foundation and common code. And that common code is already proven by then that, it can work in many versions. So that is the way to capture the knowledge and try to move forward and reduce your porting efforts. And then, if you have, you can always define your devices. And then you can also, across the devices, you can actually have inheritance, so that you don't need to see, for example, one of the common thing, many people talk to us is, JTME polish. So again, they use XML and they complicated it and overcomplicated it, and you have to depend on it. Ours is a self-manageable, and very, if I tell, coming. So this is what we are trying to say is, if you are object oriented, you can solve the object fragmentation problem with much more maturity and much more easily, and you can actually be much faster than the conventional approaches. So this is what is the directory structure. So as I said, yes, you can actually avoid infinite branches by using proper object oriented and then trying to really leverage code reuse. Another thing I said, yes, you should not leave it to only the code. You have to, for example, logo. See, what do you change between so many devices? Logo, and the logo, if you really see it, it may be for X number of resolutions. Why can't we use that across the projects? There are so many. Once you start wearing this hat of object oriented, you will see a tremendous potential to give object oriented solutions for this toughest problem. So similarly, now we say, yeah, you have a resources, you have a common resources which you can use it. See, for example, I will discuss both on how to reuse I18 and resources, that is like text and all. So we have actually abstracted it, not as a hard coded in the code. We can have, again, in the Excel sheet, this gets converted to code based on our tool. But however, I'm trying to say even these resources, you see so many common things like exit, save. Why should they be part of every project? So they can come from the foundation, or if it is not the global foundation, they can come from the mobile foundation, mobile common foundation. You see, this is the one. So it inherits foundation. So basically what it means, if you really apply, then the increments in the porting becomes very easy to manage. And also for an architect, he knows by seeing it, whether it has to be part of that ported code or can it move to the upper. And that is where I'm saying enterprises can save a lot of money and knowledge gets captured, reused. So this way what happens is, you are only focusing on what is that increment. And if it is more, then it's the architect's job to see how well he can re-engineer. So similarly, now then this way you can actually use even the text content across the devices, and then with the simple inheritance. And then you can also have media, so where you can have so much of media which can be reused, and you can specialize it per device. So for example, for porting device. So even each ported device will have its own resources. Okay, so let me see. So yeah, so I have something to show you. Like yeah. See now, if you see my specialized application, TSD, is just instead of tons of things, it is just defining 80 specific to. So for example, even if I want to override edit specific to the project, I can do it. So, but if I'm not overriding it, I can actually delete it. Then it will take whatever is there in the superclass. So one is inheritance of this, and then overriding. And so basically, yes, I think even the resources I'm not able to find actually. So you can actually create OEM specific resources wherein they are able to really override those resources per resolution. So now, for example, this is the icon which got changed from the main foundation to this. So basically, it is the same principle. You can apply it, but I think the reasoning for business is much different. You can avoid porting. So now again, in the final tip is please avoid Eclipse plugin because that is not the right one for professional development or professional way of saving developer efforts. And we keep saying it, that is the one which creates the source for IT waste and rework. Because yes, nobody can comment what Eclipse plugin has done, but actually over a period of time, because that doesn't have a feature, you will duplicate it, and then it makes once you duplicate it, you are in the hell, and that can continue to be in the hell. You cannot come back. Okay, now before I go to the summary, I will just show you the demo. So one of the things people were be interested, how does so for example, now see if I see, I will take you to. So for example, now we have realized these all 5 principles through a very professional framework using Ant. Ant is very powerful with a lot of custom tasks. We were able to achieve it, and you can see, for example, if you want to start a simulator in Android, you can just use Ant sim, and the same command will work for even starting JVME applications. So it will take some time, but let us come back to this. So you're not worried about now where my SDK is installed or what my which directory at all. Everything is taken care. And if I want the emulator for a default device is different. Emulator for if I want for C200, I can just say you please start the emulator for C200. One simple C200 will take care of everything in terms of simulator and in terms of compilation, which source path to use, which class path to use, everything it will take care. So that is now this has actually started one emulator which actually so you can actually start playing with it. And the same thing, let us see, I have for so now this is supposed to actually build my device for C200, which has to take N40 series device specific code and then make it work on C200 emulator. So even the build time is can be reduced so much, and unless as I said, that is the level of simplicity object oriented can give. Yeah, you see this Android device now, see the same, I use the same Ant sim. It is now able to understand it is the Android context. It also understands it is a G8 device default. But if somebody wants to give G10 device, it will actually start G10. Or if I want to start, so now with the Nokia, you can see the Nokia emulator coming up. So basically, the developer's pain has to be on how to achieve the business goals rather than meeting the fragmentation issues. If I say and DDMS will actually open up the DDMS related to that SDK, and then you are there for debugging. That's all. Now you can see this. So this is actually launched and then launched the corresponding thing. So basically, and see, though I've shown you how to start a simulator. See, the simulators are also fragmented because they are in different directory locations and they have different ways of starting in different SDKs. And the same can be applied to resources, code reuse, and code reuse. And this has been very well realized because for a period of 3-4 years of our efforts. So, and another thing we see popularly is the configuration. For example, you have the same build, you may have to realize it in different configurations. If it is a local release, development release, production release, QA release, staging release. So all of them, you can actually capture in this form. Anything, I would only wish, any challenge you see with, a mobile application, please look at this way. 80 to 90% of the problem will go away, and you are actually investing a lot of time on solving the business problem. So as a summary, I think I will go through the summary now. So as promised, our passion is to find a simple solutions for the complex enterprise problems. And we have seen that, how simple is it and how, if you really see the real world, it is made so complex. And to solve that complex, they're adding, some different hype. But however, I'm saying, this needs much more tremendous efforts. But however, we have to reach there. Otherwise, we should not expect any great mobile applications coming in the near future. And at least in our company, we see fragmentation is not a curse, it is a boom, and it challenges the ordinary programmer. You have to elevate yourself to a deep architect to solve these problems. And we have seen code reuse as much as 80% to 50%. And actually more than that, actually it tells, what are the upfront problems we are creating. Because once you start thinking in that way, it will tell you that, you're not limited to just making this code work on JTME, but you should also make sure Android it works, BlackBerry it works. So that way you are making your business logic much more bug proof. And this our approach also, see, if you go with a pre-processing approach, people say if and pre-processing are same way of solving the problem, but however if creates bigger footprint because that code is there everywhere. And the pre-processing will actually eliminate at compile time, so it will have footprint less. But however, pre-processing will create another problem of not being object oriented, and IDEs cannot able to help you on refactoring. If you say find, you say at a class level itself, many things change and it cannot find. So our approach actually goes beyond pre-processing, goes beyond ifs, and then give you pure object-oriented way and with a clear separation of the code. And architect can actually push himself to the higher and higher level. And it actually, we have seen it footprint reduce, not just because of the approach, but because obfuscators are there, because of object-oriented nature, they do much better job. And it can save a lot more time and cost going to the third-party solutions. And build time pre-processing is IDE friendly, debugger friendly, and in fact, you don't need to say that you need to build for one device. You can always say, for example, you build me for and all G, I think G star device, okay, and G1 star. So it will actually compile for I think yeah, I just gave one thing, but yes, if that's not compilable, at least it will tell you, you can how many devices comply to it, and you will be able to build for all of them at once in the configuration you want. And this is actually helps a lot in a release time where no manual steps should be required. So this is what we have. Let me finally go through some of the questions. I don't know whether there are more. So I have one question from Jagjit Singh, who says, any tips on porting for devices which have dual interface, touch and keypad? As I said, our framework does not differentiate, whether it is a touch screen or something. If you think, you need to have a special, definitely you need to have a special handling for touch and dual interface. You actually have a sub module called touch in the porting, and try to put all that code there. So that way what happens is, as I said, yeah, we are not assuming anything other than saying anything can change anytime. But however, you have to follow the reusability principle, so that once you think touch is a different class of devices, I don't need to now go with mobile and source, as a OEM level. I can always create porting, or another thing called touch, and then start addressing. Or if it is within Alcatel you have a touch, you can have one more category called touch. So that way I think you're dynamically evolving. And then what happens is, because if it is a touch device, the common methods will actually refer to the specialization of that will refer to touch way of doing things, rather than keyboard way, key way of doing it. So basically, our framework, as I said, we have encapsulated fragmentation in object-oriented way, and your focus should be, yes, if this is the category, try to have that reusability as much as possible across all the touch devices. Don't limit yourself to touch devices of Android or particular HDK. You may still have it at that level, but you should also move it to common level. So I think, yeah, we have covered all the questions. If there are any, I'm not sure,
There are few other questions shared with you. Can you please see them in the questions pan?
Okay. As a mobile application developer, how did I get a correct platform for? Okay, let me go through any tips on porting devices. Touch, that is answered. As a mobile application developer, how can I identify correct platform for third party? So as I said, it is a business issue. You have to work with the business, understand their short-term and long-term goals. However, even if it is vague, this approach will help you to refactor. For example, if suddenly you understand that some of the resource has to be reused, or some of the code has to be reused, this configuration can be moved to something else. I mean, you can just simply refactor that. So basically, I'm saying, yes, everything is so dicey. Don't depend on a static way of doing it, and the static way is defined by the plugin. Look at the dynamic way of refactoring so that you are at a safer way of handling these complexity. As you just told, we change the generic device, so that is where if you really see it, the build system will actually do all that magic for you. So basically, because once you are confining to one class alone, so then you are able to just change that one line with we have used simple and replace command, where wherever you find generic device method, you replace it with device specific, and because you are giving a device name, it will actually prefix device name called, and then identify that corresponding class. Yes, I would say, can I port JTME to app to Android? I would say, please don't look at it as a porting effort. Look at it as an architectural challenge of reusing maximum code across these two, and that is where this framework helps. And can you explain what is the pre-processing? Yes, as I said, this is another way of eliminating selectively the code at compile time. But however, it is like you are transforming the ifs of the language into pre-processed language, which is actually breaks IDs. And there are no standard for pre-processing, which will have more problems. Okay, I think one question I see it. I have created an app in Android 2.3 which used a few APIs in 2.3. Can I install an application in Android 5 without publishing it? Without publishing again? So if you have used Android 2.3 API, I mean, I think definitely Android 1.5 API installation will break, and first of all, even at a compilation time, it will break. And but our approach where we say, if you want to have used only few applications, few API of 2.3, 2.3 has exposed hundreds of API. If your application has used only some of them, then actually, one approach is, you can actually have 1.5 implementation of those methods, if possible. Otherwise, you can always say, boss, this feature is not available. So that implementation can say, this feature is available in the higher version of Android by throwing an exception. So that is where I'm saying, yeah, if you say 1.5 you want to downgrade, you still implement those methods. If, I mean, and then yes, you have a, for 1.5 you can actually throw the exception. See, for example, let me come back to this compilation where I just said compile it for G1 star. It has taken all the devices which are complying, and then it may not so if your code has not written properly, then it will break because it is using Android 1 SDK features and class path, and that API will fail. So that is the power of see, this actually also helps you on the release management. Oh man. So I think we are done, Keshav. All the questions are answered. I don't know if I am missing anything else. I said one key takeaway is please look at fragmentation as a way to use object-oriented to its extreme. And though I'm saying it is extreme, the solution is very simple because we have already realized it.
Have shared a couple of more questions. Please check.
Okay, I think there is one. Okay, I think yeah. So will they come in the top or bottom? Okay. Okay, I see one more.
If you sort the
Is there any
questions,
FOSSS and plugin?
I'm saying if you sort the
Okay.
questions on a received basis, then you will find all the questions.
done. Okay, I'm seeing the more. Okay, where can I get a sample script for some of the tutorial steps for the same? I would say, though it is a script, it is a massive script with custom things. Maybe I think, yeah, if we understand you more, we can help you on that. But yes, definitely, there are very powerful scripts to give you that level of simplicity. And is there any open source and plugin available to perform the code parsing and generate new code? If you really see, Ant of Android has got all the Ant, but again, see, again, for the sake, they also give you Ant version of compilation. They also give you the plugin approach, but however, they don't keep so much of the SDK variants in mind. And we actually use their source code, their initial Ant script, and then plug in our logic. So basically, you have to start from the script what they give, and then apply these principles, and then you're done. Yes, definitely, by basic Ant script cannot help you, because again, that depends on, we have actually, for example, as I said, you change the class path, you change the source code minimal. I'm saying you don't change the source code 100%. You change only in 1 or 2 places. But when you are debugging, you should have that source code, otherwise you will have a problem. So we have actually this plugin also reverse engineers and then gives you the source code which is applied per device. So if I really, I can take you to that, for example, so most of them will come one after the other. So we also never thought, we will bring out this framework, but once we started seeing how what is the IT waste being created by our resources, we said, let's fix it. We don't want, my resources to spend time on trivial things. So can you explain what is FOSS? So is there any FOSS and plugin available to perform I don't know. Okay, so I think, yeah.
It is free and open source software. Explained by Soumya.
Oh, okay, fine. No, definitely, I don't know. Yeah, ours is a script, but definitely we can think about it. Maybe this is the first initiative we had. So maybe I think I missed some of them. I think somebody has reminded me. Yeah, due to clean code and separated code, there are no induced bugs. When you are porting for one device, that will not induce bugs on other. And yes, we say, this is, though it is particular to Java, it can be applied to iPhone with reference to at least resource reuse. For example, text resources. And what we gave you is the tip of the iceberg. And then, but a lot of fragmentation issues can be solved by this simple approach. Never forget inheritance overriding, and don't misuse them, overuse them. It's a byproduct of Tejasoft's work in delivering enterprise grade application. Please, I think, whatever we are saying, they are applicable to enterprise grade applications, not for the mobile games, because they are only meant for, very shortly. But enterprise application, they will have, 2 to 10 years of, life, and you cannot keep investing 200 to 500K. And so this actually is, this is our approach of saying giving factor 4 benefits, half the efforts and double the results. So yeah, so that is where we have. And okay, let me go through a few more questions which have come in. So anybody who want more information, please do contact us at the feedback.techgig.tejasoft.com. We will try to help you as much as possible. There is nothing for now. As I said, the free and open source is creating different avenues. But I'm sure, I don't know whether anybody can invest, so much, because many things are changing and proprietary in nature. So this approach, because it is Ant-based, it will work with every. Again, it's for an advanced user. It can work with every IDE. IntelliJ, we use very frequently IntelliJ. It works with it. And I would always recommend, IntelliJ as opposed to Eclipse. That's my favorite. But however, I think I know Eclipse is very popular, but for us it doesn't gel well. but I think it must be equally powerful. But for me, I think, IntelliJ is very, very God for us, and, it is very, very powerful. And especially if somebody would have used structural search, they should start using it. So Keshav, I think all the questions are covered.
Yes, we may wait for a minute to see if there are any other questions coming from the attendees. Else we can conclude the session now,
Okay.
and we can take the other questions offline.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah, please use that feedback email. As I said, yeah, please keep this is for enterprise grade applications, and look at fragmentation as a way to take advantage of object oriented. So these are the two key takeaways. Okay, I think I think yeah, we are getting some feedback of Soumya saying that it's an excellent presentation. Thank you for that. And I'm saying, yeah, please do. I'm saying be cautious in sharing these details to your managers. I'm not against managers, but I know how IT works. But as I said, because you are a developer, I know your efforts. My heart is for the developers. Try to use maximum these kind of simple principles, and you will have a lot of time to even please your boss. So yes, I think yeah, I want to at least have one question. In case you find any other challenges in applying these principles, please do share it to us. We will see how we can best provide you solution. So, but we have okay, Lalit Verma. Okay, yeah, Lalit Verma says thank you for such an informative session. Yes, it was an excellent presentation. Thank you. Atul is saying that. Thank you, all of you.
Okay, so now we can conclude the session. I would request the attendees to post their questions on this email ID which is mentioned on the slide, and those questions can be taken offline and answers will be posted on techgig.com.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you. Bye.
Thanks Mr. Raja Nagendra for an informative session. We would also like to thank our participants for making this webinar a huge success. The recording of this webinar will be made available on techgig.com by tomorrow. Next webinar on TechGig is on the topic the future desktop. It would be held at 3 p.m. tomorrow. Speaker would be Bright Augustus, Lead Business Productivity Group at Quadra. So see you all tomorrow at 3 p.m. Thank you.